Put the phone down. Step away from the door, now. Marcus Reed stood motionless in front of his own house, smart key still in hand. The black Audi behind him was still warm. The coffee was still hot. The navy suit still perfectly pressed. But the police had arrived. Officer Brad Hensley stepped out of the patrol car, one hand resting on his belt, a position far too familiar. His eyes scanned from head to toe, processing information through suspicion instead of logic. "This your car?" "Yes, and this is my house." Hensley didn't smile. "ID." Marcus handed over his wallet. Hensley flipped through it, pausing at a government-issued credential. His eyes narrowed. "You make this yourself?" "It's real. I work for the federal government." "When you tell the truth but nobody believes you, whose fault is that?" Across the street, Emily Carter froze mid-watering. She'd seen Marcus leave for work every morning for 2 years. Her phone came out, camera on, live stream started. A second patrol car pulled up. Cold metal clicked around wrists. Is staying silent and dignified still the right move when the entire system is against you? Marcus didn't shout, didn't beg, didn't pull out his credentials and wave them around. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from proving who you are. It comes from letting people reveal exactly what they're doing. But when the truth finally breaks, will it be too late? 6 hours earlier, 5:47 a.m. The alarm never had a chance to ring. Marcus was already awake, staring at the ceiling of his modest bedroom in Cedar Ridge. Modest by choice. He could afford more. The federal salary allowed it. But this neighborhood, newly built colonials, trimmed lawns, blinking security cameras, was strategic. It was the kind of place where patterns mattered, where people noticed things, where bias lived in plain sight. Marcus rolled out of bed and moved through his morning routine with military precision. Shower, shave, check emails on the encrypted tablet he kept locked in his nightstand drawer. 3 new case files had arrived overnight, all from suburban districts, all involving residential stops, all following the same pattern. He scrolled through incident reports while his coffee brewed, a dark roast from a veteran-owned shop 2 miles away. Each report told the same story with different names: black homeowner, affluent neighborhood, concerned neighbor call, escalation. Marcus had read 73 similar reports in the past 4 months. Today, he would become number 74, but nobody knew that yet. In the kitchen, he reviewed his schedule, an 8:30 a.m. strategy briefing downtown. Deputy Director Jensen needed his analysis on enforcement patterns across 6 states. The data was damning. The presentation was ready. He just needed to get there. Marcus selected his suit carefully. Navy, tailored but not flashy. The kind that said professional without screaming power. He pinned a small eagle insignia to his lapel, barely noticeable unless you knew what to look for. His phone buzzed. A text from Jensen. "Ready for today?" He typed back. "Always." But ready for what exactly? Outside, Cedar Ridge was waking up. Garage doors opened. SUVs backed out. Neighbors waved to each other with practiced suburban courtesy. Marcus had lived here for 2 years. He'd attended neighborhood barbecues. He'd helped Emily Carter carry groceries when her hip was bad. He'd even helped fix the Johnsons' sprinkler system last summer. But he was still the only black homeowner on this street. And in Cedar Ridge, being the only anything meant you were always being watched. Marcus grabbed his keys, his coffee, his briefcase with the classified presentation inside. He had 43 minutes to reach downtown Atlanta. The route was clear, the traffic was light, the presentation was loaded. Everything was going according to plan, until it wasn't. Marcus Reed had learned 3 rules before he turned 12. Rule 1. Compliance doesn't guarantee safety, but defiance guarantees danger. Rule 2. The system doesn't care about your rage, it feeds on it. Rule 3. Documentation beats confrontation every single time. His father had taught him the first 2 during the talk, the one every black parent gave their children about surviving encounters with authority. Stay calm. Hands visible, no sudden movements. Yes, sir. No, sir. I understand, sir. Survival tactics disguised as manners. But Marcus had learned Rule 3 on his own, years later, sitting in a criminal justice classroom at Howard University. A professor had posed a question that changed everything. What's more powerful, being right or proving you were right? The answer seemed obvious, but the methodology wasn't. Being right meant nothing if the only witness was your corpse. Proving you were right meant living long enough to make the evidence speak. That's why Marcus had spent 15 years building his career not on heroics, but on process, not on speeches, but on spreadsheets, not on outrage, but on data that couldn't be argued with. He'd joined the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility specifically because it investigated the investigators. He'd risen to special agent not by making noise, but by making cases airtight. And he'd volunteered for this assignment, the Residential Bias Enforcement Review, because he knew something others didn't. You can't fix a system from the outside by yelling at it. You fix it from the inside by letting it expose itself. That meant going into neighborhoods like Cedar Ridge, living there, becoming part of the pattern, waiting for the moment when someone would see him, a black man in a nice suit with a nice car in a nice neighborhood, and decide that something must be wrong. And when that moment came, he wouldn't fight it with anger. He'd fight it with evidence. Late at night, when the house was quiet and the case files were closed, Marcus sometimes wondered if this approach made him a coward. If real courage meant confronting bias loudly, immediately, publicly. But then he'd remember the 73 other files. 73 people who'd been right. 73 people who'd had no way to prove it. He was building that proof. One documented interaction at a time, even if it meant letting himself become the experiment. But was he ready to be the evidence? The presentation was scheduled for 8:30 a.m., not 8:45, not 9 o'clock. 8:30 sharp in Conference Room 2B at the FBI Atlanta Field Office. Deputy Director Sarah Jensen would be waiting with 14 regional directors, 2 DOJ representatives, and one very skeptical Oversight Committee chairman who'd made it clear he thought this entire review was a waste of taxpayer resources. Marcus had exactly 43 minutes to get there. The presentation on his laptop represented 6 months of work, incident reports from 127 suburban districts, pattern analysis showing racial disparities in suspicious person calls, body camera footage timestamps that didn't match written reports, GPS data proving officers spent 340% more time in affluent neighborhoods with recent demographic changes. But data only mattered if someone with power saw it, and right now, the chairman's vote hung by a thread. Jensen had been blunt in their last call. You get one shot at this, Reed, one presentation. If the chairman walks out unconvinced, the entire program gets defunded by Friday. 2 years of work, gone. Marcus had asked what would convince him. Something he can't ignore, Jensen had said. Something undeniable. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. He'd spent months documenting how the system failed people who looked like him. Now he had to convince that same system to fix itself. The pressure sat heavy in his chest. If he missed this meeting, Jensen would have to present without him. She had the data, but not the analysis, not the cross-references, not the predictive models showing which neighborhoods would be next. And without those models, the chairman would dismiss the whole thing as isolated incidents. Case closed. Budget redirected. 73 files collecting dust. Marcus checked his watch. 7:47 a.m. Traffic from Cedar Ridge to downtown Atlanta averaged 31 minutes this time of morning. He'd timed it 17 times over the past month. He had a cushion. Barely. His phone sat on the Audi's hood, screen showing the route highlighted in blue. 8 turns, 2 highway merges. One final stretch down Peachtree. Doable. Unless something unexpected happened. And in Cedar Ridge on a quiet Tuesday morning, with security cameras blinking from every garage and a black man standing in front of a house that people couldn't believe he owned, the unexpected was already in motion. The patrol car's lights weren't flashing, but Officer Hensley's hand was already moving toward his radio, calling for backup. Marcus noticed 3 things immediately. First, Officer Hensley's approach angle was wrong. Standard protocol for a residential check placed officers at a 45-degree angle to the subject, close enough to communicate, far enough to maintain tactical advantage. Hensley was walking straight at him, closing distance fast. Aggressive posture. Second, the radio call Hensley had made before exiting his vehicle lasted exactly 4 seconds. Not long enough to run a plate, not long enough to verify an address. Just long enough to say, "I've got something." Preemptive backup request. Third, Hensley's eyes never looked at the house number, never checked the mailbox engraved with "Reed" in brass letters, never glanced at the property tax notice visible through the front window, public record, clearly displaying Marcus Reed as the homeowner. He wasn't here to verify. He was here having already decided. Marcus's training kicked in automatically. Assess, document, respond with precision. His body language shifted into what he privately called compliance mode. Hands visible, movements slow, voice even. The same mode he'd taught in de-escalation seminars. The same mode that shouldn't be necessary in front of your own home, but was. "Sir, I can show you my mortgage statement if—" "I didn't ask for that." Hensley's hand still hovered near his holster. "I asked for ID." Marcus handed over his wallet, watching Hensley's face carefully. The moment Hensley saw the federal credential, something flickered across his expression. Not recognition, not apology. Suspicion. What is this supposed to be? Hensley turned the credential over, studying it like a fake ID at a college bar. "It's a federal identification card issued by—" "Yeah, I can read." Hensley's jaw tightened. "You work for the government?" "Yes." "Doing what?" Marcus paused. This was the moment. He could say it. "Special Agent, FBI, Office of Professional Responsibility." 3 words that would end this immediately. 3 words that would also end the documentation. Because the moment Hensley knew who Marcus really was, his behavior would change. The body camera footage would show an officer who'd simply made an honest mistake. No pattern, no bias, just an unfortunate misunderstanding. And the 73 other files would remain exactly that, files. So Marcus said, "Federal administration work, vague enough to be true, specific enough to sound legitimate, useless enough to change nothing." Hensley's lip curled. Federal administration. He said it like an insult. Right. Across the street, Emily Carter's phone camera captured everything. The viewer count on her live stream hit 47. Then 89, then 156. The algorithm had noticed something, and the algorithm never forgot. The second patrol car arrived at 7:51 a.m. Officer Dana Mills stepped out, younger than Hensley, sharper in her movements. Her eyes scanned the scene with trained efficiency. Expensive car, professional attire, quiet street, and her partner standing too close to a calm, compliant man. Marcus watched her assess the situation. He also watched the garage door 3 houses down begin to open. Richard Torres emerged, a middle-aged accountant Marcus had met twice at neighborhood meetings. Torres froze mid-step, keys dangling from his hand, staring at the scene unfolding on his street. Their eyes met. Torres knew Marcus, had borrowed his hedge trimmer last month, had discussed property taxes over Emily's 4th of July cookout. Marcus saw the recognition in Torres's face. He also saw the calculation. Get involved and be late for work, or pretend you didn't see anything. "Officer Mills," Hensley called out, not taking his eyes off Marcus. "Possible trespassing situation. Subject claims he lives here but can't provide adequate proof." "I offered to show," Marcus started. "I said adequate proof," Hensley cut him off. Mills approached, her expression more neutral than her partner's. "Sir, do you have proof of residence, utility bill, lease agreement, mortgage statement?" Marcus gestured slowly toward his briefcase in the car. "I have documents inside my vehicle. May I retrieve them?" When you have to prove you belong in your own home, who's really trespassing on what? "Stay where you are," Hensley ordered. Mills hesitated. Something in her training flagged this as wrong. "Brad, if he has documentation, keys can be copied. Documents can be forged. Hensley's voice carried across the quiet street. "I've seen it before." Across the street, Emily's live stream now had 340 viewers. Comments rolled in. "This is profiling. He's literally standing at his own door. Check the mailbox. It has his name." But Hensley didn't check the mailbox. Mills looked at it, though. Marcus saw her eyes flick to the brass letters. "Read." She saw it. She knew. And Torres, still frozen by his garage, saw Mills see it. 3 witnesses to the same truth, but only Emily was recording. Marcus's phone buzzed on the Audi's hood. Another message, probably Jensen asking where he was. 7:52 a.m. 38 minutes until career-defining presentation. 0 minutes until this became something bigger. Was documentation enough when the system refused to look at it? Marcus ran the calculation in his head. Option 1. End this now. Tell them exactly who he was. Special Agent Marcus Reed, FBI, Office of Professional Responsibility. Badge number. Direct line to Deputy Director Jensen. 3 sentences and this entire situation would evaporate. He'd be at the presentation with time to spare. The chairman would see his data. The program would survive. Option 2. Let it play out. Document every second, every assumption, every procedural violation. Add his own case to the 73 others, not as a researcher, but as evidence. Make the invisible visible. But option 2 had costs. He checked his watch again. 7:53 a.m. 37 minutes. Traffic would be building. The highway merge near Turner Field always slowed between 8 and 8:15. His cushion was evaporating. Hensley was still holding his federal credential like it was a prop from a costume shop. Mills was staring at the mailbox, her jaw tight. Torres had finally moved, backing his car out slowly, eyes carefully averted, the universal language of "not my problem." And Emily kept recording. Marcus could hear her voice faintly from across the street. "Officer, he lives there. I've seen him every morning for 2 years." "Ma'am, please step back," Hensley said without looking at her. Emily didn't step back. "His name is Marcus Reed. It's on the mailbox. This is his house." "Ma'am, I won't ask again." The threat was clear. Marcus watched Emily's face change. The instinctive calculation every civilian makes when authority turns its attention on them. Keep pushing and become part of the problem, or retreat into safety. She took 1 step back, but she kept recording. 7:54 a.m. Marcus thought about his father's rules. Compliance doesn't guarantee safety. The system doesn't care about your rage. But there was a 4th rule his father never got to teach him because his father never had the credentials Marcus now carried. Sometimes you have to let the system reveal itself before you can dismantle it, even if it costs you everything. Even if it costs you 37 minutes you don't have. When does patience become complicity in your own oppression? Marcus made his choice. "Officers," he said calmly, "I'm happy to cooperate with any verification process you need. What specific documentation would satisfy your concerns?" Hensley's smile was thin. "We'll start with you in handcuffs while we figure that out." "Officer, that's not necessary." Mills said it quietly but firmly. Hensley turned to her. "Excuse me?" "He's been cooperative. He's offered documentation. The mailbox confirms his name matches his ID." Mills gestured toward the brass letters. "We have no legal basis for—" "I have basis." Hensley's voice hardened. "High-value vehicle in a residential area. Subject unable to provide immediate proof of ownership. Potential vehicle theft, identity fraud, or burglary in progress." Every word technically within policy. Every word completely ignoring context. Marcus saw Mills' internal struggle. She was young enough to still believe the rules mattered. Old enough to know challenging a senior officer had consequences. She made her choice. "Brad, I really think we should—" "Officer Mills, I'm securing the subject for everyone's safety. Are you going to assist or not?" The question wasn't really a question. Mills stepped back, and Marcus understood. She'd pushed as far as her career would allow. He didn't blame her. The handcuffs came out. "Turn around, hands behind your back." This was the moment that would define everything. Marcus could resist, not physically, that was suicide, but verbally. He could make the scene, pull rank, force the reveal early. Or he could turn around. He thought about the 73 files, the people who'd had no choice, no credentials to flash, no federal authority to invoke. Just their word against a system that had already decided. If he pulled rank now, he'd win his own case, but he'd lose theirs. Marcus turned around, put his hands behind his back, felt the cold metal close around his wrists. Click, click. 7:56 a.m., 34 minutes. Emily's live stream hit 1,200 viewers. The comments became a flood. "Lawyer up! This is illegal! Someone call the news!" But Marcus stayed quiet, calm, documenting. Hensley's body camera was recording. Emily's phone was recording. Mills was witnessing. The algorithm was spreading, and somewhere in downtown Atlanta, Deputy Director Jensen was probably wondering where the hell her lead investigator was. Marcus had made his decision. Now he'd live with the consequences, or document trying to. How much of your freedom should you sacrifice to prove the system is broken? The handcuffs were too tight. Marcus didn't complain. Complaining got you slammed against the hood. Complaining got body cameras accidentally turned off. Complaining got you a resisting arrest charge. He'd read the reports. Hensley guided him toward the patrol car. Firm grip on the arm. Textbook procedure. Nothing Emily's camera could call excessive force. That was the brilliance of it. Everything by the book. Everything completely wrong. "Wait," Mills's voice cut through. "We haven't verified vehicle ownership. If this is his car, we can't just—" "We're not impounding it," Hensley said. "We're securing a potential crime scene while we investigate." Marcus's phone buzzed again on the Audi's hood. Jensen's name flashed on the screen. 7:58 a.m., 32 minutes. Hensley reached for the phone. Marcus tensed. "That's my property. You need a warrant to—" "I need to secure evidence." Hensley picked up the phone. The screen showed Jensen's incoming call clearly. Deputy Director Jensen, FBI OPR. Hensley's thumb hovered over the decline button. Then he answered it. "This is Officer Hensley, Cedar Ridge PD. Your friend's being detained." Silence on the other end. Then a woman's voice, sharp as a blade. "This is Deputy Director Sarah Jensen, FBI Office of Professional Responsibility. Put Special Agent Marcus Reed on the phone. Now." Hensley laughed. Actually laughed. "Sure it is. Ma'am, impersonating a federal officer is a crime. I'm going to hang up now and— Officer Hensley, do not hang up this phone. Check the caller ID. Check the number. Call the FBI Atlanta field office and verify my identity. You have 30 seconds before this becomes a federal obstruction case." Hensley looked at the phone screen, looked at Marcus. The smile faded, but he didn't unlock the handcuffs. Hensley put the phone on speaker but held it away from Marcus. "Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but we're conducting a lawful investigation. This individual matches the description of—" "Description of what, officer?" Jensen's voice cut through the morning air, clear enough for Emily's live stream to capture. "A black man in a suit standing in front of his own home." The words hung in the air. Hensley's face flushed. This has nothing to do with— Then what description exactly did you respond to?" Silence. Mills shifted uncomfortably. She knew what was coming. "We received a call about suspicious activity in the area," Hensley said, recovering. "A high-value vehicle, an unknown individual." "Unknown to whom?" Jensen pressed. "His neighbor across the street is literally on live stream right now, telling you she's known him for 2 years. His name is on the mailbox. His credentials are in your hand. What part of this situation is suspicious beyond the color of his skin?" Emily's live stream exploded. "Say it louder! Get his badge number! This is 2024, not 1964. Hensley's jaw clenched. He ended the call, turned to Marcus. "You think you're smart? Calling your friends to get you out of trouble?" His voice dropped. Meant only for Marcus to hear, but Emily's phone caught it anyway. "I know your type. Federal job, nice car, fancy suit. Think you're better than everyone else. Think the rules don't apply." There it was. The assumption that success must be unearned, that belonging must be questioned, that a black man in a nice neighborhood couldn't possibly have earned his place there. Marcus kept his voice level. "Officer, I haven't claimed to be better than anyone. I've simply asked you to verify my identity through proper channels." Proper channels. Hensley's smile was cold. "Your proper channels don't work on my street." Mills spoke up, her voice strained. "Brad, maybe we should call the station. Verify the FBI contact. If he really is a federal agent, he can prove it at the station." Hensley opened the patrol car's back door. "Get in." Marcus couldn't move toward that car without losing something fundamental. Not his freedom, that was already gone. His documentation. 8:02 a.m., 28 minutes left, and the patrol car door stood open like a mouth. Before Marcus could respond, a third vehicle arrived. Not a patrol car, a white Crown Victoria with government plates. Sergeant Keith Morrison stepped out, mid-50s, gray at the temples, 28 years on the force written in the tired lines around his eyes. He'd been dispatched after Jensen's call to the station. "What do we have?" Morrison's voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone who'd seen this exact situation play out too many times. Hensley straightened. "Suspicious person call, Sarge. Subject refuses to adequately verify residence or vehicle ownership. Became confrontational when—" "I've been completely cooperative," Marcus said quietly. Morrison's eyes flicked to the handcuffs, to the Audi, to the mailbox with Reed engraved in brass, to Emily still recording across the street. He'd been a sergeant long enough to read a scene. "Hensley, why is he in cuffs?" "Officer safety during investigation." "Investigation of what crime?" "Potential trespassing, vehicle theft. On what evidence?" Morrison's tone sharpened. "His name matches the mailbox. His car keys match the vehicle. What specific articulable facts gave you reasonable suspicion?" Hensley's face reddened. "We received a call about—" "What call?" Morrison pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Morrison. What was the original call for service at 4721 Oakmont Drive?" The radio crackled. Sergeant, we show no call for that address. Officer Hensley initiated the stop on his own observation." The silence that followed was louder than sirens. Morrison turned slowly to Hensley. "You stopped him on your own observation of what, exactly?" Mills jumped in, her voice tight. "He was standing in the driveway with expensive items. Brad thought—" "His own driveway," Morrison corrected. "With his own car. Outside his own house." He looked at Marcus. "Sir, has anyone actually attempted to verify your residence through proper channels? Checked property records? Called your mortgage company? Anything?" "No," Marcus said simply. Morrison pulled out his phone, typed for 30 seconds, and showed the screen to Hensley. "Public property records. Marcus Reed. Purchased this property 26 months ago. Current on all taxes. Clean title." He took 3 steps toward Hensley. "Take the cuffs off." "Sarge, I still think—" "Now, Officer Hensley." Hensley fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking slightly. The handcuffs clicked open. Marcus rubbed his wrists, staying silent. Morrison turned to him. "Sir, I apologize for this inconvenience. You're free to go." 8:06 a.m., 24 minutes, but Marcus didn't move toward his car. "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" he asked, voice steady. Morrison hesitated. "You're free to leave. Then I need to file a formal complaint." The scene froze. Morrison's expression shifted. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but—" "I'm not upset," Marcus said calmly. "I'm requesting to file a formal complaint about this interaction. That's my right, correct?" "It is, but given that we've resolved the situation, you've released me. The situation isn't resolved." Emily's live stream now had 3,400 viewers. Local news vans were being dispatched. The algorithm had done its work. Morrison glanced at his watch, then at Hensley, then back at Marcus. "Filing a complaint requires coming to the station. Paperwork, interviews. It could take several hours." The implication was clear. "You have somewhere to be, don't you?" Marcus did have somewhere to be. 8:08 a.m., 22 minutes until the presentation that would determine whether 2 years of work lived or died. Morrison was offering him an exit, a clean one. No complaint, no paperwork, no hours at the station. Just get in your car and go, save your career. All he had to do was let it go. Across the street, Emily lowered her phone slightly. She'd stopped recording, but her hand hovered over the screen, waiting to see what Marcus would do. 3 doors down, Richard Torres had returned, pulled into his driveway, engine still running, watching through his windshield. He could testify. He'd seen everything. But Torres's body language screamed the same thing it had earlier. Not my problem. Mills stood rigid, eyes on the ground. She'd objected once when it had cost her nothing, but filing a complaint meant statements, internal affairs, choosing sides. She stayed silent. Morrison pressed gently. "Sir, I understand this was frustrating, but Officer Hensley was following protocol." Was handcuffing me without probable cause protocol? He believed he had reasonable suspicion. Based on what specific articulable facts? Morrison paused. He was cornered, and he knew it. "Sir, if you file this complaint, you'll be at the station for the rest of the morning, maybe longer. Is that really how you want to spend your day?" There it was again. The soft pressure to make it go away, the gentle suggestion that pursuing justice wasn't worth the inconvenience, that moving on was easier than holding people accountable. Marcus looked at Emily, at Torres, at Mills. 3 witnesses, 3 people who knew what they'd seen, 3 people who would say nothing if he didn't. His phone buzzed again. Jensen's text. "Where are you? Chairman arrived early. Need you now. 8:10 a.m. 20 minutes. The choice was binary, his career or his conscience. But was it really a choice if one option meant abandoning everything he'd built this case to prove? Marcus's mind ran the calculations at lightning speed. If he filed the complaint now, 3 to 4 hours at the station minimum, missed the presentation entirely, the chairman would leave unconvinced, the program would be defunded by Friday, 73 cases would close without resolution, 2 years of work erased. If he left now, 20 minutes of aggressive driving could still get him there. He'd be breathless, rattled, but present. The data would speak for itself. The program would survive. And this interaction would become just another story he told himself late at night. Another moment of swallowing injustice for the greater good. Another compromise. Jensen's next text came through. "Chairman is asking questions I can't answer without your models. Getting hostile. 15 minutes or we're done." 15 minutes. Morrison saw Marcus reading the text, saw the internal war playing out. "Sir, you can always file the complaint later. Take some time to cool off. Think about whether—" "I don't need to cool off, Sergeant. I need to file a complaint about an unlawful detention based on racial profiling." The words landed like stones. Hensley stepped forward. "That's not what this was. I had legitimate—" "You had assumptions," Marcus cut him off. "You assumed a black man in this neighborhood didn't belong. You assumed my federal credential was fake. You assumed my home wasn't my home. Every single assumption based on one factor." "That's not fair," Mills said quietly. Marcus turned to her. "Officer Mills, you saw my name on the mailbox. You knew, and you said nothing until it was too late." Mills flinched. How many injustices survive because good people stay silent at the critical moment? Torres, still in his idling car, suddenly shifted into reverse, backed out, drove away. One witness gone. Emily's phone was back up, recording again, but her viewer count was dropping. The algorithm's attention was already shifting to the next controversy. Morrison checked his own watch. "Sir, I'm asking you one more time. Are you sure you want to do this today?" Today. The word carried so much weight. Not, do you want to file a complaint, but do you want to do it today, when you clearly have somewhere critical to be? 8:13 a.m., 17 minutes. Marcus looked at his Audi. Keys still on the hood, briefcase still in the passenger seat, laptop with 2 years of research still powered down. The highway to downtown Atlanta was waiting. So was the complaint form. He couldn't choose both. Mills was staring at Marcus's lapel. Her eyes had caught something Hensley and Morrison had missed. A small eagle insignia pinned just below the collar. Gold. Subtle. The kind of detail you'd only notice if you knew what to look for. She'd seen it before. In training, in protocol manuals, in the badges of federal agents who'd come to run workshops on interagency cooperation. FBI Office of Professional Responsibility wore them. Her face went pale. Marcus saw her recognition, saw the moment she understood exactly who was standing in front of her in handcuffs. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. Morrison was still waiting for an answer. "Sir?" Marcus pulled out his phone, the one Hensley had answered, and held it up. "Sergeant, before I decide, I'd like you to look at my recent call log." Morrison took the phone hesitantly. The screen showed 15 calls over the past week, every single one labeled with federal agency abbreviations. Deputy Director Jensen, FBI, OP, RAS, AC, Williams, FBI, Atlanta, DOJ, Civil Rights Division, U.S. Attorney, Northern District, G.A. Morrison's throat moved as he swallowed. "What exactly do you do for the federal government, sir?" I told Officer Hensley. "Federal administration work." Technically true, deliberately vague. Morrison's eyes narrowed. He was a 28-year veteran. He'd dealt with enough federal agents to know when someone was giving him rope to hang himself with. "Sir, are you law enforcement?" Marcus paused. This was it. The moment he could end everything. 3 words. "I'm FBIOPR." But if he said it now, the body camera footage would show a sergeant asking the right questions, doing due diligence, following up appropriately. It would erase Hensley's initial assumptions, Mills's silence, the handcuffs without cause. It would turn an unlawful detention into an unfortunate misunderstanding between agencies. The narrative would shift. The evidence would weaken. So Marcus said, "I work in oversight and compliance review." Still true, still vague. Morrison handed the phone back, his hand unsteady. "Officer Mills, call the station. Get me the watch commander, now." Mills didn't move. She was still staring at the eagle pin. "Mills!" She snapped to attention. "Sarge, I think we should—" Her radio crackled. Different voice, different tone. "All units, be advised. FBI Deputy Director en route to 4721 Oakmont Drive. ETA 4 minutes. Repeat, FBI Executive Staff en route." The air changed. Morrison's face went from concerned to controlled panic. Hensley's went white, and Marcus checked his watch. 8:15 a.m. 15 minutes until the presentation. 4 minutes until Jensen arrived. The math didn't work anymore. Marcus's phone rang again, Jensen's name on the screen. He answered, put it on speaker, let everyone hear. "Marcus, where the hell are you?" Jensen's voice was sharp, strained. "The chairman just walked, said if we can't even get our lead investigator to show up on time, the entire program is a joke. He's recommending zero funding." The words hit like physical blows. 2 years, 73 cases, gone. "I'm still in Cedar Ridge," Marcus said quietly. "Cedar Ridge? That's... Marcus, you should have been here 20 minutes ago. What happened?" Marcus looked at Hensley, at Morrison, at Mills, still frozen with her hand on her radio. "I was detained." Silence on the other end. Then, "Detained by who?" "Local police, at my house." The silence stretched longer. When Jensen spoke again, her voice was ice. "They detained you? At your own residence? For what?" "Suspicious person call." Except there was no call. Officer Hensley stopped me on his own observation. "What observation?" "I was standing in my driveway." Another silence. Marcus could hear Jensen breathing, could hear her calculating the implications. "Marcus, the presentation, if you leave right now—" "I can't." His voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion he'd shown. "The sergeant wants me to file paperwork. If I leave, the complaint dies. If I stay, the program dies. When the system forces you to choose between justice and survival, who really wins? Put the sergeant on, Jensen ordered. Morrison took the phone reluctantly. This is Sergeant Morrison, ma'am. Sergeant, this is Deputy Director Sarah Jensen. The man you detained is Special Agent Marcus Reed, one of my lead investigators. He was supposed to deliver critical testimony to a Congressional Oversight Committee 15 minutes ago. Because of your department's actions, 2 years of civil rights investigation just got defunded. Morrison's face went gray. Ma'am, we didn't know. You didn't verify. There's a difference. Morrison looked at Marcus. The eagle pin, the federal credentials, the call logs, all the evidence had been there. They'd just refused to see it. Ma'am, if Agent Reed needs to leave, it's too late, Jensen said flatly. The chairman left. The vote happened. We're done. Marcus felt something collapse inside his chest. All those files, all those people who'd suffered the same treatment with no recourse. He'd had a chance to change the system, and he'd lost it standing in his own driveway. Morrison handed the phone back. Sir, I'm truly sorry. Sorry. The word meant nothing now. 8:19 a.m. The presentation was over. The program was dead. And Marcus was still standing outside his own home, proving he belonged there. Marcus stood there, phone still in his hand, staring at nothing. 2 years. He thought about the first case file he'd read. Jamal Williams, detained outside his apartment in Philadelphia, handcuffed for 18 minutes while officers verified he lived there. No charges, no apology, just a note in the system. Suspicious person resolved. Jamal had written in his statement, I just wanted to go inside and hug my daughter. She was watching from the window. She's 6. What do I tell her about what she saw? Marcus had never met Jamal's daughter, but he'd built the statistical model that proved Jamal's case wasn't isolated. That showed the pattern. That demonstrated how often suspicious person calls targeted black residents in predominantly white neighborhoods. That model was on his laptop. That model would never see a committee room. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister in Chicago. Mom's asking if you're coming for her birthday next month. She won't say it, but she misses you. Been working too much, little bro. Marcus hadn't been home in 7 months. Too busy building cases, too busy collecting data, too busy trying to fix a system that had just proven it could break him as easily as anyone else. He typed back, I'll be there. Promise. Then he looked up at his house. The house he'd bought specifically for this assignment, the house he'd chosen because it fit the profile, affluent, majority white, the kind of neighborhood where his presence would eventually trigger exactly what had just happened. He'd turned his own life into bait, and the trap had worked perfectly, except he'd caught himself in it too. Morrison cleared his throat. Sir, Agent Reed, the deputy director said she's still coming. Should we... You should leave, Marcus said quietly. Sir? You've done enough, all of you. Just go. Mills finally spoke, her voice small. I'm sorry. I saw the mailbox. I knew. I should have... You should have spoken up when it mattered, Marcus finished. But you didn't. None of you did. He wasn't angry. That was the worst part. He wasn't even surprised. He was just tired. Tired of having to be perfect to be believed. Tired of having to prove his humanity before people would acknowledge his rights. Tired of sacrificing pieces of himself to document a problem everyone already knew existed. Emily crossed the street slowly, phone lowered. Mr. Reed, I got it all on video, every second. If you need it... Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Marcus's voice was gentle. Save the file. We'll need it. For what, he wasn't sure anymore, but documentation was all he had left. 2 black SUVs turned onto Oakmont Drive at exactly 8:23 a.m. They didn't rush, didn't use sirens, just moved with the kind of precision that made everything else on the street look chaotic by comparison. The vehicles stopped in formation, one blocking each end of the street. 4 federal agents stepped out first, followed by Deputy Director Sarah Jensen herself. She was 52, silver hair pulled back, wearing a charcoal suit that had seen 1,000 crime scenes and congressional hearings. She carried a leather folder and walked with the controlled fury of someone who'd been doing this job long enough to know exactly what she was looking at. Emily's live stream, which had dropped to 800 viewers, suddenly spiked back up. 2,000, 5,000, 11,000. The algorithm sensed escalation. Jensen approached, credentials already in hand, FBI badge and identification card held high enough for every camera to see. "Which one of you placed handcuffs on Special Agent Marcus Reed?" Morrison stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Morrison. I arrived after the initial. I didn't ask who arrived late. I asked who put federal law enforcement in handcuffs." Hensley's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I had no way of knowing. His credentials were in your hand." Jensen's voice cut like a scalpel. "His federal ID card, issued by the FBI, with his photograph, his badge number, his clearance level. What part of that did you fail to recognize?" "It looked fake," Hensley said defensively. Jensen opened her leather folder and pulled out a document. "This is Special Agent Marcus Reed's personnel file. 12 years with the Bureau. Commendations from 3 field offices. Current assignment, lead investigator, residential bias enforcement review." She handed it to Morrison. "Read the assignment description, Sergeant." Morrison's hands shook as he read aloud. "Investigator will document instances of racially motivated residential enforcement by embedding in target communities and observing departmental response to calls involving minority homeowners in predominantly white neighborhoods." The words hung in the air. Mills made a small sound, halfway between a gasp and a sob. Jensen continued, her voice level but relentless. "Agent Reed has been living in Cedar Ridge for 26 months, specifically to observe how local law enforcement responds to his presence. Today's interaction was his 74th documented incident across 6 states." She pulled out another document. "This is a federal court order authorizing audio and video surveillance of all interactions between Agent Reed and law enforcement personnel. That eagle pin on his lapel," she pointed to Marcus's collar, "contains a recording device. Every word you said has been captured and will be submitted as evidence in our ongoing investigation." Hensley went pale. "Furthermore," Jensen pulled out her phone, screen already loaded. "Mrs. Emily Carter's live stream was simultaneously being monitored by our technical operations team. We have redundant documentation from 3 sources: Agent Reed's body-worn device, Mrs. Carter's civilian recording, and your own body cameras." She turned to Hensley. "Officer Hensley, in the 17 minutes you detained Agent Reed, you made the following statements. Quote, 'I know your type. Federal job. Nice car. Fancy suit. Think you're better than everyone else. Quote, your proper channels don't work on my street. You also answered a call from my direct line and accused me of impersonating a federal officer.'" Hensley opened his mouth, closed it. Jensen wasn't finished. "Sergeant Morrison, you arrived 13 minutes into the detention. You verified Agent Reed's residence through public records within 30 seconds. Yet you then pressured him to abandon his right to file a complaint by implying it would take several hours and asking if he really wanted to spend his day on paperwork. That's textbook discouragement of civil rights complaints." Morrison's face flushed. "Officer Mills," Jensen's voice softened slightly. "You identified the homeowner's name on the mailbox. You objected once to the handcuffs. Then you remained silent. In law enforcement, silence isn't neutrality, it's complicity." Mills stared at the ground. Jensen turned to the cameras, both Emily's phone and the news vans that had just arrived. "This is what systemic bias looks like. Not hooded figures burning crosses, not overt slurs, just assumptions, just officer safety, just following protocol. Except the protocol only applies to certain people in certain neighborhoods." She walked to Marcus and extended the handcuff keys Morrison had been holding. "Agent Reed, you are officially relieved from field observation duty. The evidence you've gathered over the past 26 months, including today's interaction, will be presented to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division and a federal grand jury." Marcus took the keys, his expression unreadable. Jensen addressed the officers one final time. Officer Hensley, you have 30 seconds to explain to these cameras what specific articulable facts gave you reasonable suspicion to detain Agent Reed. Hensley's mouth opened. No words came. That's what I thought. Jensen pulled out a final document. This is a federal civil rights investigation notice. Cedar Ridge Police Department is now under formal review. All three of you will be interviewed under oath. Your body camera footage has been subpoenaed, and this case will be filed as United States versus Cedar Ridge PD. She looked at Marcus. Agent Reed, you missed your presentation, but you just gave us something better than data. She gestured to the cameras, the live stream, the growing crowd of neighbors. You gave us undeniable proof. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the same driveway, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over Cedar Ridge. The street looked the same. Same colonial homes, same trimmed lawns, same security cameras blinking from garage corners. But everything had changed. The Cedar Ridge Police Department had implemented mandatory bias training. Officer Hensley had been placed on administrative leave pending the federal investigation. Mills had resigned and was now working with a community oversight board, trying to rebuild trust she'd helped break. Morrison had retired early. The congressional chairman who'd walked out of the presentation, he'd called Jensen personally after seeing Emily's live stream go viral. 18 million views and counting. The residential bias enforcement review had been refunded, expanded, actually. 10 more investigators, 15 more cities. And Marcus's case, case number 74, had become the cornerstone of new DOJ guidance on residential enforcement protocols. But that wasn't what made him stay in Cedar Ridge. Emily Carter waved from across the street, watering her plants like always. She'd testified before Congress. Her live stream footage had been entered into federal record. She'd become an unlikely advocate for civilian documentation of police interactions. "Morning, Marcus," she called out. "Morning, Mrs. Carter." 2 houses down, a new family was moving in. The Johnsons had mentioned them. Young couple, mixed race, 2 kids. They'd been nervous about the neighborhood after seeing the news coverage. Marcus had stopped by last week with a welcome basket and a quiet promise. "You belong here. And if anyone suggests otherwise, you call me." The husband had relaxed visibly. "We saw what you did, what you went through. That took guts." Marcus had shrugged. It took documentation. Now, watching movers carry boxes up the walkway, he thought about Jamal Williams in Philadelphia, about the other 72 cases, about his niece watching from a window, trying to understand why police had handcuffed her uncle. The system hadn't been fixed overnight, but it had been forced to look at itself, and sometimes that was enough to start the change. His phone buzzed. "Jensen, new case file just came in. Phoenix suburb, same pattern. Interested?" Marcus looked at his house, at the mailbox with his name on it, at the quiet street where he'd sacrificed a career-defining presentation to prove a point the country desperately needed to see. He typed back, "Send the file." Because the work wasn't finished. It probably never would be. But now there were protocols, documentation requirements, oversight mechanisms, body cameras that couldn't be turned off, civilian recording protections, federal reviews, tools that didn't exist before case number 74. Marcus picked up his briefcase and headed to his car. The Audi started smoothly. No patrol cars appeared, and as he backed out of his own driveway, in his own neighborhood, in front of his own house, Marcus Reed allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. Not because he'd won, but because he'd made sure the next person wouldn't have to fight the same battle alone. When you see injustice, will you look away or will you hit record? The system only changes when we refuse to let it hide.